Hi guys, and welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm delighted to welcome on Siobhan O'Hagan Fitness. So Siobhan, thanks a million for jumping on first. Do you want to talk about yourself a small bit? Where you come from, what's your background, what do you do? I'm sure many have heard of you at this stage.
Yeah, it's not even that interesting of a story, like the usual. Worked in finance and studied maths in university, and then went through a little quarter life crisis at 25. And I suppose someone said, "Why don't you be a PT?" When I was, I was doing recruitment at the time, and I was miserable. And I don't know. I never thought it was a viable career. But then I said, "Look, I'll study personal training in the evenings." I then realized I'd have to get myself in shape because I had never, after even years of training and dieting, I was like, I don't look like a PT. Again, this is my thoughts are not same now, but so I kind of started sharing my journey of changing my body and studying and working and that whole discipline, hustle, all that. And I was think quite early in the game to Instagram and being hashtag fitness and hashtag Irish fit fam. And I was lucky that I grew quite fast. So by the time I was qualified as PT, I was pretty much pushed out the door of the job I was in because they knew I wasn't planning on staying and they needed to take on someone permanently. So I started doing personal training, and I was 25, I think maybe 26 by the time I qualified, and I had no money. I just started working in a gym, paying rent and training people one-to-one. And I wish I had the confidence now that I did then. I was like, I know everything now. I know how to train. I know how to change your body. I had gotten myself in really good shape, just because I had changed my why in terms of, why I was actually training and dieting as opposed to before. I wanted to make a career out of it. And then since then I realized I know nothing, and I've been learning and changing my attitude to everything since. So Instagram was always a big thing for, originally it was just to advertise my services, but I started gathering a lot of followers, started sharing a lot of my knowledge. And again, I've probably gone full circle in that, like, I probably share very little knowledge on there now because there's so much criticism, there's so many nuances, there's so many, it depends. And it's honestly just easier. I feel like I've got two lives. Like, one is my business now is all online, doing the Ferriss, it's the coaching program. And then I almost feel like, my Instagram is now me sharing my actual life, which is no longer completely circled around fitness. It's like fitness is now a part of my life, but here's my outfits from Zara and all that, so it's great. Like, I still have sponsorships and everything through Instagram, which was never what I set out to do, but it's obviously a great means of freedom, which is what I've always built my life off, the whole freedom and happiness. And I realized that was a very long introduction to myself.
No, absolutely perfect. No, and there's so many segues I can go with that. I think one for me when I started online is I kind of wanted an idea. I had an idea of the type of lifestyle I wanted as well. I knew the type of work I was doing. I had gone through my master's, I had gone through my undergrad. So I knew what I was going to go into, but I had a general idea of the lifestyle I wanted. Was that something that you had at the start? Is that what you knew that?
Well, I think originally it was from a place of, I just didn't want to be doing what I was doing. Like, it wasn't even that I really wanted to be into personal training. I mean, I enjoyed, like, someone just said to me, what would you imagine doing all day? When I actually was trying to get them to pay for me to do a software or a master's in software engineering, and it was a recruitment company. So they were like, no. And I was like, and she was like, what would you actually want to do all day? Because I was miserable. I was crying that day. And I was like, at the time I'd get up every morning at 5 a.m. to go to the gym. But because I was miserable, I was also like eating and drinking loads, and I just said, I'd just like to stay in the gym all day. And she said, well, what about personal training? And I was like, and as I said, like, I was like, no, I've studied maths. Like, I have to have a career and, like, the career ladder. I can't jump off the career ladder. But anyway, obviously I started working then doing personal training, and I loved it. And I loved helping people, especially one-to-one. But I got to a point, again, I was a little bit anxious, just going like, what's wrong? And I realized I was working crazy hours. You're up at whatever, I'm always an early riser, but working all morning, all evening, and kind of trying to do your own training during the day, being out, having no proper routine. And I just had another moment where I had to sit down and go like, what do I really, really want here? You know, like I was reading a lot of stuff like Tony Robbins books and stuff at the time where, you know, it's like close your eyes and, you know, imagine your perfect life. And I had that, I was like, is it mad? But like, I was just picturing having the laptop on a hammock on the beach, you know, like that laptop like that. And I had decided even before I was qualified that I wanted to do online training, and it was something that I'd never even heard of. I was like, how is that even possible?
Yeah.
And I'm sure yourself, like you're probably ahead of the game as well with any kind of like physio, like a physio, you would always probably think I need to be.
Like,
so I was like, how would this work? And I looked at it and I was kind of doing a bit of both. What I did was when I was working as a PT and all those crazy hours, I had to stop and go, I had loads of money because I was crazy. I was charging, I don't know, €50 an hour. And I had to stop and go, no, I need freedom. You know, again, focusing on my values. I was like, I need freedom and I need happiness. And what I did was I looked at a number. I was like, how much do I actually need to be making to like, not even just to be like scraping by, but to be like, just enjoy my life. And, you know, it worked. I can't remember what it worked out as, but I was like, I only need to be working 25 hours a week. Why am I doing 40? So I changed my attitude then. I was like, these are the hours I'm working. You know, fit into them if you want. If not, you know, here's another great PT that I can recommend. And that gave me the freedom and time to then build online. So I was doing both for a while. And it was actually in 2017. I spent some time out here in Portugal. And I was like, I can't go. See, I didn't like messing my clients around with travel. You know, like I had people that I was doing every week. And I was like, I need to pull the plug on doing one-to-one. And it felt like a big risk, you know, obviously cutting off a big slice of income, but then giving myself the freedom to go live in Thailand or anywhere. And yes, then I went fully online in 2017. And luckily I was way ahead of the game when, you know, we all had to go online.
Yeah, definitely.
I've kind of just, I then was just working with no plan, like just enjoy. I had that freedom and happiness that I always was working for. So it was always just about sustaining that. There was always a point where I could do more work and make more money. But again, I was always like, no, you've got your freedom, you've got your happiness, and always making decisions based off that. Okay. So that was, then, you know, you're walking around Bali and you're like, oh, you know, like my laptop on the beach, I can run it from my phone.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And I think something that you mentioned there a lot is actually trying to align to your own values, having to think about what they were. And I think that's a huge part of it, is actually trying to decide, like, what do you really value? Does everyone kind of, are you always just chasing the fact that you want to look good on Instagram and have like everything so it looks perfect? Or do you want a lifestyle behind it that you can do whatever you want, whenever you want? Is there anything else that you feel drove that? Like any other values that, like, what would you say that your main values are? You were saying freedom, you were saying happiness. What else?
Yeah, I said freedom and happiness. And now I'm a lot more focused on health as well. I'm like freedom, happiness, and health. And that's both physically and mentally. So obviously mental health will tie in with happiness as well. But I kind of, you know, freedom and happiness to a point where I was like, I'm just going out too much. And, you know, I'm like, I need to focus on my health a lot more. And I used to, even, you know, I used to be in amazing shape, but like I was hardly eating any vegetables, you know, like, and I was younger then, and all I cared about was like, being sexy, I suppose. You know, you're in your 20s, you're like, that's all I care about. And now as I'm getting older, I'm like, oh God, I need to think of my future health. And even that changes the way I train and everything as well. You know, like I'm lifting weights now, not because I'm like trying to grow glutes. It's like, I'm thinking of my long-term health and also for martial arts. But, yes, my values. I was having a bit of a, you know, I always think it's great to be very sure of your values, because then it makes your day-to-day decisions easy. You know, like if I'm offered a load of money to work somewhere for a few months, I'd be like, no, you know, I can turn down the money because I'm clear on my values of freedom. And it's always been the same with relationships or things like that. You know, like, yes, you know, a relationship would be great, and you know, to be closer to my family would be great. But again, I know my value is freedom. Yeah. But I have friends, you know, who value security, and that's why they're working hard to get their deposit for their house. They want that, you know, security for their family. And I can see that. It's not like I look at that and go, are you mad? You know, like, it's like, I can see your values are different to mine.
Yeah.
I actually, yeah. So I said more recently, I've been thinking, I was like, you know, about the idea of like, what if our values are actually holding us back from life experiences? So I'm both way, like, for example, like say the friends who value security, what if they're missing out on like vital life experiences because they don't value travel or freedom? And then the same for me, I'm like, what if I'm missing out on life experiences like a relationship or kids because I'm placing these? So that's something I've only started thinking about recently. I'm like, what if our values are holding us back from life experiences?
Yeah, that's a massive point actually, because I never thought about how they hold you back. I always thought about like have these certain set of values and you live a life aligned with those and things would be great.
Yeah.
But where do you feel like, as you were saying, from a background of security, I know like even looking at my parents' situation or even other friends who've come from a situation where they wouldn't have been as financially secure when they were younger. So they don't care about working the 40, 50, 60-hour weeks because financial security is a huge part of their life. So where do you feel the freedom aspect? Did that come out of working in finance and just being like, oh, I'm sick of this 9-to-5 job?
Yeah, like I think I had a moment, and it was, I actually remember specifically, I was trying to book like a beautician appointment, and they were only open on a Thursday evening or at the weekends. And I was like, it's actually mad how I have to be at this desk for the majority of my life. And like in terms of the week,
Yeah.
you know, like from 9 to 5 or 6 or whenever, Monday to Friday, I was like, I have so little time that's my own. And I was like, and for what? Like, and then when I do have time, I just want to go drinking, or, you know, like I'm just stressed. And I remember, and again, I used to get the bus every day into town, and it was the most stressful bus. It would just show up or be full, and it would, or else I'd be sitting on it. I'm sitting beside the same people every day, and I'm like, am I the only one that this bus is driving mad? And like, how? Because I was doing like work placement. I was on it for a few months, and then I was off it for a few months. I was back on. It was the same people sitting there, and I was like, how are you still doing this? But I felt like it was really just me, like a rat race. You're standing in the middle and everyone's passing you by. And I was like, this can't be it for the next 40 years. I was 25. I was like, I'll retire at 65. And, you know, I might not be at the same desk, but I might be making more money. But like, I won't be doing, my life won't look much different.
Yeah.
And I don't think I really valued the freedom until, again, when, as I said, when I was as a personal trainer, when I was like, actually, there's a value to free time. You know, like before that, it was always like, you work as much as you can and make as much money as you can. And I saw that, I think it's just not an Irish thing, I don't know, but definitely like the only way I knew of living while growing up. Even working in recruitment, I always thought I wanted to be an accountant. I was considering doing that. But I was looking at how hard the accountants are working, and I could see even exactly like how much they're making as they progressed. And I was like, but you're not actually like the value, the change in life for the amount of work they do. So, you know, they're just buying more expensive cars and bigger houses. But I was like, but is your quality of life changing for the amount that you're working, and the harder and more skilled you are, or the harder you're working and the more skilled you have? So I don't think it was any particular point. It was just all these things, and realizing that I just valued waking up on a Monday when I decided I wasn't going to do personal training on Monday mornings anymore. And I was like, wow, this is great. I was like, I can just get up and do what I want. And yeah, so it was, as soon as I started getting it, I was like, yeah, I place a lot of value on freedom and obviously happiness.
Yeah, exactly. I can see how your thought process would change in that. How is it then? I know from you, as you mentioned there, am I right in saying that you used to compete with physics or with like fitness?
Yeah, I did bodybuilding.
Was it bodybuilding? Was it? Okay.
Yeah, well, bikini fitness it's under the bodybuilding umbrella.
Okay.
That was it's an important part of my journey, like because I've learned so much about, like, I definitely don't regret it, but it definitely put me in a bad place. So I was working as PT, ticking away. I was in a gym where a lot of people did competing, but I was seeing like a lot of very unhealthy ways of doing it. Overtraining, undereating, obviously steroid use, all that. And I was like, I would never do that. Like, because a lot of people said, oh, you're in great shape, would you consider competing? And I was like, never. But then I kind of said no to it for about a year. And then a friend of mine was a great coach, and she was coaching me just, I think, for a photo shoot or something. And she competed, but I saw that she'd been traveling and, you know, it looked like she hadn't restricted her life at all. So I was like, do you think I could do it? I was just in a bit of a place where I needed a goal, you know, like my training was going well, or my personal training was going well. I was just going to the gym every day, but I was like, and I was in great shape, but I was like, I need something to focus on. You know, I think we always need that. We need a goal. And so I decided to do it. And I was in a great position to do it. I had a lot of muscle, no stress, great coach who understood me, you know, like never put me on low calories, or relatively low calories. And as I said, I was out in Portugal for like 5 weeks, I think, before the show. Looking back, I was absolutely tiny, but I was finding it a lot easier than I thought it would be. Like, because I had seen people struggle to bodybuild, and I was grand. And then did the show, peaked. Like there was times where I was really struggling, and I only looking back now, I was like, that's not healthy. You know, like I was, you know, going out to run to like burn off calories the night before, and but then as I said, did the show. Went unreal. I came second in the tall. Like I didn't even do beginners. I was really happy with it. Got off stage buzzing. I was like, wow, can't wait to do that again. But then that's when like all the trouble started. Then I realized I had such a poor body image. Like even I knew I had to put on weight. Like I was shredded, like veins through my stomach. And again, I had a lot of muscle, but I found obviously my body naturally wanted to eat a lot more. You know, it's not healthy to stay at that body fat percent, and I knew that, but it was a difficult time in my head, which I only can look back at now and say, you know, 3 days after the show, I didn't want to go to the gym because I felt too fat. Like I didn't want anyone, because I had got so much praise for the transformation I had done, that I felt that it was a failure as a person to put back on weight. And again, it's like, but I knew I needed to. And it went in this. So then I was binging. Like looking back now, and the definition of binging, I was binging, and then my coach would be like, "Oh, no, we need to increase your calories." And I'm like, "No. I had like 5,000 calories the weekend. You know, let's just keep them low because I need to like." And of course, inevitably, I'd end up binging again. And I was getting angry at myself. Like looking back at the pictures I was posting, like I was there, like, oh, you know, getting comfortable in my bigger body now, and it was like I was tiny. You know, I was. It was a really hard thing to express online. Like I didn't want to be like, I feel really fat, because I knew I wasn't.
Yeah.
It was difficult, and it's only now, and I had no self-control. So I kept thinking, I need to start competing again. I need to do another prep, because that will be what I need to for the discipline. Because I was traveling all that summer. I had summer of freedom, I thought, but I ended up like, so the fact that I wasn't motivated even by, you know, getting into bikini to stop binging, I was like, I've no self-control. I'll just have to do another competition. And what happened was I ended up going to Thailand and meeting loads of new people that I'd never met before, who never knew me any smaller. I started doing CrossFit, and I was like, hey, why can't I do this? I want to get better at this, you know, and started like, you know, doing burpees. I would say like I was great at deadlifting, but I wasn't great at doing burpees between deadlifting. And started and I think I just gave up tracking. I was actually like, I'm so sick of this. I was like, I can't do it anymore. I give up. And ironically, then I ended up getting leaner. Because by the time I got to Thailand, I had put on, like, obviously from the summer of binging and restriction and binging and like being unmotivated to train, like like hypertrophy training obviously didn't motivate me, because I felt like I was pissing in the wind. Like I felt like I was like I was literally putting on weight, like trying to train for abs. And so when I went to Thailand, started doing CrossFit, stopped caring about what I looked like, and of course ended up getting leaner. Started eating to like listening to my body, being like, oh, you know, I've got CrossFit in the morning, going to make sure I eat a good bit tonight. And yeah, so like then I went home, and I had a new coach at the stage, and he's like, so are you going to do the competition? And I was like, well, can I track? I think I might go back to Thailand. Can I do it over there? And he's like, yeah. And then I got back and was like, you know, trying to explain to people over there who are like really fit and strong. And I'm like, yeah, like, look at this fitness. And they're like, that's not you. Like, like, why did you do it? And I was like, I don't know. Or, you know, like, it's like when at that time, my goal was just like getting fitter and stronger. So then I was like, why would I do that? So then I just decided not to. And the more I spoke, I started then speaking out about it, speaking out, like I was like looking back and like, the thing is I started then to actually like my body, like I started to be, appreciate what it did. I started posting bikini pictures confidently and kind of comparing it to when I was posting it, say a couple of months before, and saying like, I don't think I'll do that again. And a lot of, I did get a lot of hate especially from people in the bodybuilding industry, because I'd be like, girls, don't do this. I'm like, there's absolutely, you don't get anything out of it, except, and the thing is, I know how many women in Ireland have like disordered eating, especially the ones the people who think they need to do a bodybuilding show are probably the people who definitely shouldn't.
Yeah.
And like, there's definitely some amazing athletes who do, and people who are in a healthy position to do it. But I just was like, there's so many people I might have actually glamorized this for, that I think it's really important that I come out and talk about the actual
the problems,
competition struggles. And so since then I'm getting loads of hate about it, but like it shaped me so much in my journey, because I now understand about women and how they train and how they think when it comes to dieting. And I also feel like I'm like, I've done it, I've got as lean as I'm ever going to get, and like that's not where you find happiness. You find happiness in training, moving, eating well, letting yourself live, and then accepting your body, whatever shape that is for your environment and your lifestyle. Like I'm so much happier now, and it's not about a size.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I wanted to jump into a small bit, like between the top patterns between when you were restrictive eating and then you were binging. What was causing the binging? Was it because you were restrictive eating during the week and you were just so hungry? Or was it like that you were thinking, oh, it's the weekend?
A little bit. No, because it wasn't a health. It wasn't just going, oh, I'm going out with my friends. Like I wouldn't say it was on my own, like spooning Nutella into me and crying. Like it was dark. Yeah. Like I remember, I think it was about a week, I'd say, after the show, I had Wellfest and I went to it, and, like I was really big at the time. Everyone, like I was fitness queen, because I won the competition or whatever, not won, but anyway, I was getting a lot of attention at the time. And when I went to Wellfest, it was all these, stalls with all these like healthy food places and protein bars. And everyone gave me like so many boxes of their protein bars and blah, blah. And I brought them all home. And I swear I must have ate them all that night, and not them all, but like I ate a lot. And then I had to go to the second day of Wellfest, and I remember trying to cover up because I was like, oh my God, everyone's going to know how fat I am. Or
really?
Yeah. So this is like, it's only looking back now, like that was not okay. And the thing is, I probably was bloated after obviously eating all that, but like I was still so lean. So like I still needed to actually put on weight. So it was a mix. Yeah. It was a mix of like mental battle, but also physically my body needed to, like, I'm not supposed to be a size 8. Like, so it was, but then now, and after that, then I started, the thing is, I was still probably saying no to the social occasions because I was trying to be disciplined, but then it would end up in me going home and eating, which was, not a good place.
Was the identity around it, like, was it more to do with, in the social eye, I need to look like this and I need to eat this way and all that? Or was it more your own identity that like, I'm supposed to be as lean as possible, I'm not supposed to have any fat, I'm not supposed to eat any shite, and then you were just kind of breaking that at certain times? Or how do you think? I think,
as I said, I think I knew I was supposed to be putting on weight. Like I knew on the way down, like when I was losing it in the way to the show, like I remember being like, oh, I can't believe to wear a size 8 jeans. I didn't want to be a size 8, but I was like, it's only temporary, and I kept my size 10 and 12. And so then I remember being so angry when they didn't fit. But it almost felt like I was like a split brain. It's like I was able to go, no. But then again, I think it comes down to, and I think this is something to be aware of, I think it was the amount of praise I got for my discipline. And I'm like, I associated that with being a good person. This is why everyone likes me. So if I was saying I've absolutely no discipline now, I'm putting on weight, it's like people will be disappointed in me. And this is what I warn people now, like about praising fat loss online. Like you don't know what you're praising. You could be praising, disordered eating, sickness, stress, an illness, any kind of. So I always think like it's best to not like, and then, putting on weight, you could be doing that and improving your health, and that's not praised. So I think the safest thing is, but also of course you could be praising someone for looking healthier, but they're maybe suffering with a binge eating disorder. So I think the best thing is to just not comment on people's bodies, unless I don't know unless they bring it up, but I just think, I have friends here haven't seen them in a year, and I see they've lost weight, but I just haven't said it to them because who knows what they've gone through, So I think that's a big thing for me, was that I had gotten so much praise and I didn't want to let people down. It was probably more of an external thing than internal.
Okay. So that's a huge, I can see the conflict there. And then how do you feel that has changed the way that you like work with your clients now in terms of like your approach to working with them? How does that shape that?
It's funny. It's a difficult one because, I mean, first of all, I can't work with anyone with an eating disorder, but it's fine. I think so many people don't realize how disordered their eating is because we've grown up in diet culture. We thought it was normal to just cut out food groups or to fast or to, so a big thing. And I think it was Larry Doyle who said it to me, was eat like an adult. And it's that finding, like, just eating normal amounts of food. Like, it means, having 3 meals a day, not just having like chicken and leaves. It's about having like a solid meal 3 times a day. Then in the evening, if you want a bit of chocolate, have it. Just don't have like a 6-pack of chocolate. And that's something that really stuck to me. I was like, God, all these things I used to do, like, maybe this week I should do a 24-hour fast. Maybe that'll help. Or maybe I should, cut out this or this, or maybe go keto, or, it's like, no, just eat like an adult. And that's what the majority of my clients need as well, because a lot of them aren't coming to me. It's not that they have weight on them and they're like, now's the time I'm going to start dieting. It's actually that they have tried every single diet. And again, I relate to that because I've done them all, like the Special K diet, 5-2, all these mad things, Slimming World, fasting, aloe vera, everything. And it's actually my biggest job is to get them to care less. Okay. If they want to, it's that thing that when I got to where I'm actually like able to listen to my hunger levels and not going by numbers or restrictions or, and of course, I always say like consistency over perfection, because what I find with women that I work with is that they get to Thursday and they've been absolutely nailing everything. And then they go out for dinner and they can't track it. And then they're like, right, that's it for the weekend, start again on Monday, and they end up in a surplus. Whereas if they're like went out on Thursday and had dinner and just tracked it and realized their calories are higher, I'm like, that's fine, but just go back to normal on Friday. Went over the long run, like they might have been in a very slight surplus that week, but it's okay because in the long run, they just end up in a very slight deficit. And that's what I try to get people to do. But you're battling against, as I said, diet culture from years of going, I might give them a level of calories and they're like, nah, that's too much. I'm like, compared to what? Like compared to the diet that you couldn't stick to in the past, or the diet that, you don't track, they say they're on 1,200 calories. And, I get that a lot. Like people say to me, I normally eat 1,200, or they say I usually eat 1,200. And I'm like, or something like, when I track, I actually have 1,200. I'm like, yeah, but what about when you don't track?
Yeah.
Those days when you eat way more than you think because you're starving, because you're having so little. And it actually like I have a 12-week program, and it takes that long to get women to trust that they don't have to be starving during the week and that they can actually still drop body fat. It just takes a bit longer, but that's obviously a lot more likely to stay off because you're not doing you're using sustainable practices. But it's a the hardest part is getting them to trust us, because like, this is actually okay, or you can have that. And the problem is, it takes 1 week where they don't track or something like that, and you lose them for weeks. They're gone.
Yeah.
I use like the mindset section of my program is like the most important thing, because it's obviously all these tools I've been learning about, like obviously reading a lot of psychology and everything and putting it into practice over the years. I've realized that obviously there's more to life than changing your body. So it's kind of having that approach with my clients. The ones that desperately want to change their body are the ones that actually probably need to realize that they need to change their attitude.
Exactly.
So it's a lot of journaling, a lot of mindset stuff, which I bring in, just to be important, so people realize what's important to them. Like one of my values around now, I'm like, if I'm at home with my family, I'm not going to tell them I can't go because I'm dieting. I'm like, no, my family is so much more important to me than the shape of my body, so I'll do that. But then there's also things you can learn from that. Like say you have a big weekend, say you're at a wedding and weekend with family, and you journal about it the next day. You're like, I don't feel great, blah blah. I have another wedding next weekend. And you're like, well, what can I it's not about getting guilt or anger. You know, it's like, well, what can I learn from it? I was like, okay, do you know what? Maybe I'll bring a sandwich before the church, so I'm not going starving into the meal. I'm not going to have 8 bread rolls before dinner because I'm starving. You know, like, just, it's about learning about what you want to change, you know, and you know, what action can I take, and then practicing acceptance around what you can't change. You know, but like, okay, I have another wedding. I'm not going to be in a deficit this week. Accepting this is my body. I'm having a great time. If I put on a little bit of weight, nobody cares. I'm the only person who'll feel it. I won't even be able to see it. And again, in the long run, taking that pressure off, it's when you actually can learn to be happy with your body, with a good relationship with food.
It's such a difficult thing to do, to change someone's, like, a thought pattern, to change a value in someone, because I notice it with myself, with a lot of the clients that I have. They have certain things that, like, they cannot do because they have a bad back or a bad knee or a bad shoulder. And then because they have those, they've really, really attached to that. And you're always trying to say, well, it's not a bad knee, or it's not a bad back. You injured it before, but that doesn't mean it's bad now. Okay, you might get a flare up at certain times, but because you get a flare up doesn't mean you're back when you injured it at the start. It's just that it's getting sore again and it's starting to flare up. And I think that education side of things, I think what you're pushing there, the education, the acceptance, is huge, in that you're going to have these times that it's going to be a step back. Like, you're going to be back where you think you're at the start, but you don't need to just drop everything and, in a way, catastrophize and make it out to be the worst possible thing. It's just about resetting, being as consistent as you can to a long-term plan, as opposed to thinking that short-term. For you, it might be weighing yourself on a Monday after a wedding or something like that. For me, it's stepping out of training, or stepping out of work for a week because I have a lot of tightness or a lot of soreness. It's kind of, there's certain parts of it, as you just said, you have to get on with it. You know, it's part of life. You can't change it. Acceptance side of things. I think what you went into there about the journaling, though, is something that I push as well, massively, because I think it's so important to reflect on that without picking up or becoming more aware of it. It's very difficult to change it because you just get stuck in the same patterns. How did you figure that out? How did you find that work?
I think it was just one time. I remember, I was probably still just after my show, but I remember being so annoyed that I went for pizza with my family. Then, you know, writing it down, you know, like, it's something like, you know, catastrophizing it, you know, like, oh, I'm a terrible person. And then, but when you write it down, you look at it and you go, I mean, I just went for pizza with my family. It's not that big of a deal. And, you know, or, you know, my values are around, and then reminding yourself, like, oh, no, but my value was to spend more time with my family this year. So that's okay. So, like, again, acceptance. And I see it so much. Like, I've had thousands of women through the Ferriss now. And whenever anyone's struggling, I actually just had a call with a client, and I could tell, like, she was like, I really wanted to work. You know, I'm so angry at myself. Went out the weekend, so angry. And then, you know, trying to do her best, and then out the weekend again. And so I just said to her, I was like, straight away, I'm like, you're not journaling, are you? No. Because if you were genuinely, if you wrote those thoughts down about, say you're going out the weekend and you feel crap, you're really frustrated with yourself, but you're going to nail it this week. But if you wrote all this down, you'd kind of go, okay, well, actually, how do I feel? Don't, you know, not great about going out. What will I do next weekend? Maybe I'll only go out one night instead of 2. Or again, if you're like, no, do you know what? I really am enjoying my summer. I'm really enjoying going out with my friends. So then you're like, okay, well, then I need to practice. I need to be like, okay, well, my body's not going to change, and that's okay. You know, I can focus on, I always say, like, just ask yourself why, or just ask yourself, is this true? You know, like, oh, I'm a terrible person. Like, is this true? Like, no. Or why? Or like, I need to change my body. Why? Like, because I want to look better. I want to feel better. Like, I want to look better because I want to feel better. Why? And you realize that, like, it doesn't actually matter. Yeah. And it's all about taking your body fat percentage is like the least important thing about you. And that's why we promote it, like, health behaviors. I do talk about tracking calories a lot because I do think it helps educate women. Like, I want people to make empowered choices, you know, in mindful and informed choices, because then you can practice acceptance. It's not this, like, rules where, oh, just, you know, don't eat bread or whatever. It's looking at food and looking at the nutritional content, and it could only be for a few weeks. Like, I'm not saying you should track your calories forever, but, you know, learning, going like, oh, you know, actually, I'd rather have butter than avocado, but also being informed that obviously maybe avocado is healthier, but at this moment, I'd be happier with butter. I don't know, things like this. Like, just, informed decisions. I hate seeing people frustrated with their results and not knowing why. I'd rather people be like putting on weight, but completely accepting of why it's happening and understanding it. Because then they have the tools as well. Like I always say, over the summer, like maybe it's the wrong time to aim for a calorie deficit, and like just practicing that acceptance and kind of aiming for higher calories, which is fine, because you might not, you might end up in a deficit anyway. Who knows? When you actually just give yourself that freedom. It's the frustration and the negative thoughts that I care about more. Like I'd just rather see people happy than the shape of their body.
Yeah. And okay. And then with it, like, I think that, well, like what you're saying about just acceptance is huge, because when you can accept it, when you get to that point of pure acceptance, it's like, it doesn't make a difference if you are whatever, throwing out random numbers, 80 kilo on the scale today and 78 tomorrow and 75. Even if the number's going down, what are you saying to them is like, okay, you are actually starting to improve. Things are starting to change. Are you still at the same level of you accepted whether it goes up or down? Or are you promoting that and saying, okay, that's good? You're promoting saying, okay, that's excellent. You're actually starting to get down. Or are you a small bit wary about that people latch onto that number too much?
No, I mean, it's because we can see exactly what their behaviors are. I'd be more concerned if they're dropping dropping measurements or weight or anything like that while on, say, low calories or doing excess training. We'd flag that. We can see because we're looking at everything they're doing. So when I see them, like on 2,000 plus calories, weight training 3 times a week, and maybe the odd cardio or just, high activity levels, still enjoying themselves at the weekend, I'd be like, okay, this is great. This is something you can keep up. Now, if I see someone been like nailing everything, but she's like, oh no, but I have something coming up next weekend, I'm terrified. I'd be like, okay, well, no, we need to bring that into your life. I don't want you nailing 12 weeks of no life, because then obviously what happens after. Because it's an educational thing. I'm like, you need to learn how your body reacts. You might realize that you can go out and still get results. So it's important. Yeah. If we notice any, the thing is that sometimes it does sound like I'm selling this program that's like, you're not going to change, you're just going to like yourself. But it actually, the majority of people do get smaller if that's their goal.
Yeah.
But by putting all these things into practice.
Yeah.
But it can seem a little bit, especially at the start, when say the calories are higher, we're so insistent on them hitting the calories. Like I'm like, I know you're not really hungry, but like the majority of women are going around not actually knowing what it feels like to be actually well fed. You're so used to dieting that you think you're full on 1,200 calories when you're not. You'll find in a few days that sticking to that level that you can't control yourself. Or if you do, you'll be putting your health at risk. So we're really insistent on the first couple of weeks of hitting the calories, and then they can manipulate. So then they'll understand that, they can have, say, an average of 2,300 calories, and they know that they're in a slight deficit. Like if we see the numbers coming down too fast, I will like put the calories up.
Okay.
Because the goal is to find the smallest calorie deficit that works. Yeah. So, and then they've got more, then they've got the knowledge, then they can manipulate it themselves. But again, we don't let them go. I'm like, yeah, of course you can keep a couple of calories for the weekend. But I'd rather see you go over your calories for the week than reduce it too much on the other days. And but they're making that decision informed. Like they know that if they're not as active this week, they might not see changes in measurements, and that's okay. Or they might be like, oh, I'm not that active this week, I don't need as many calories. That's okay. If they're injured, I'm not going to say like drop your calories. It's like, what about if we just keep them the same and we just don't expect any changes this week, and that's okay. Obviously, yourself an injury, we don't want to be like starving the body either. I'm like, it's important to, especially with sickness as well and COVID and everything. I was like, we need to fuel your body. We need to be making sure you're not putting your body under any more stress. And stress is just that thing that we're trying to eliminate. Everything, stress around training, around nutrition, and just physical stress as well of starving and overtraining. It's so many women are doing it, and that's another whole conversation about hormones and everything. But so many women are just so focused on changing their body, they're not focused on their health.
Yeah.
But when you put yourself into a healthy position, like a healthy body, naturally, I mean, it depends if you need it. It depends on the person, but they can drop body fat then.
Yeah. From a meta level, I think looking down on it from what I'm picking up of what you're chatting about is basically you're really reinforcing positive feedback loops. Like the fact that weight is coming back down because you're doing all the right stuff. It doesn't matter if it stays the same. You've decided that you need to put you're looking at a couple of weddings coming up. You want to enjoy your life. You want to, as you were saying, pushing people to get it into a calorie surplus so they don't get into that restrictive side of eating after. So it looks like, yeah, you are really reinforcing positive feedback loops and trying to mitigate as many negative feedback loops as possible.
Yeah. I have 3 coaches working with me, and like, just when everyone finishes, they're like, they're the nicest people ever, because we have again, women are like, oh my God, I had a terrible weekend. I'm after going out. What did you say? Someone said one, I'm after going out for lunch with my mom, and then had a glass of wine with my granny, and I feel awful. And like, we were like, sorry, can we rephrase that? Like, you feel awful for having a glass of wine with your granny. What if we think it was like, how grateful you should be that you have your granny to go for wine with, and realizing that it does not make, like, it's like we have to take the words that they use and change it into positive.
Yeah.
And like, sometimes it might be almost too nice. Sometimes some people need a bit of like, so they need to realize that they have to be self-motivated as well. We don't want people checking in, or don't want people sticking to calories or anything because they're afraid of the coaches, and that's a lot of people would. They'd be terrified of checking in with their coach because they've gone over their calories. And like, we're like, even if you don't track anything, or if you don't train at all, like, even it's those weeks you need coaching the most. It's those weeks where you're like, everything goes to shit, that you're like, I know I actually need to talk to someone. And that's where we come in. But sometimes people, if it's not working for some people, so, that's when I'm like, okay, let's get on a call, because I like to nicely talk to them and say, like, well, first of all, I'm like, I can tell you're not journaling, and I don't say it like that, but it's that kind of like, you have to make it realize that it has to come from within. We give them all the tools, all the knowledge. All we need is them to just, to do it. And again, the motivation to do that comes from the mindset section. Some people look at it and I'm like, what am I even journaling? Why am I walking outside without my phone? What's that got to do with me losing weight? And it's all these little things that like, I have a week where I suggest no television, and some people, like the people who are so against it, I'm like, you're doing it most. But again, it's just realizing how much time. I just want people to be more mindful in everything they do, like just slowing down and being inside their own head a bit more. So like a week of that. No, I don't think many people stick to it, but all these mindset things, like, it just helps you become more aware of what you really want in life.
Yeah.
And you're not doing things that you think that you should be doing because of other people, or because your coaches are telling you to. It has to be intrinsically motivated. And
I think, like, from what you were talking about in Thailand, like, stepping back from something and taking a look at it from the outside is the clearest way. When you're in, you can't see the forest from the trees. Like, when you were saying that you were in Ireland and you were kind of in that environment of bodybuilding and training, and then when you went to Thailand, and then stepping back from it and kind of looking at it from the outside and saying, well, really, was I enjoying it that much, or was I just doing it because I felt it was like the next step, or what I had to do, or what I was doing? I think that's it.
Yeah, I feel like that about CrossFit now. Like, why did I do burpees for fun? Now we do Thai and jiu-jitsu, and like, it's funny how you can just change and evolve. And that's the thing, I always keep an open mind with everything I do. I'm like, I could change my mind about this completely, but I'm like, I can't believe I wrestle with people on the ground for fun, and now like, at the moment I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, Jesus, it's and I was going to say that is something that I was so surprised about when I did meet you at jiu-jitsu, and here it was like, you were training like a professional athlete. You're going from jiu-jitsu to Muay Thai to CrossFit.
And it's a lifestyle out there, I think. And I think it originally came from when I was training in Thailand. So I had a lot of time in Thailand, and that was like training twice a day. But I think that's, and eating, whatever, it was fine, but it wasn't sustainable when you go back to the real world. So, and again, even before the pandemic, when I was in Bali, probably the same, training twice a day, and I was eating loads, getting away, but it was in great shape. It was like, but I kind of knew it was like a lot of stress in the body. I actually wasn't in that good shape, because I remember going home and during the pandemic, like, no gyms, no training, besides running and yoga, and I ended up getting really lean, and it was like, oh, I didn't think it was possible without training twice a day in the gym,
Yeah.
So when the gyms reopened, I was doing CrossFit at the time, and I was like, I'm not allowed to do more than 3 sessions a week. Oh, so really? Because I obviously really enjoyed CrossFit and great community and great friends, but I was just so aware of the stress I was putting on my body then by training too much.
Yeah.
And I had to step back and realize that, like, and it was great to get that, because, you know, it was great to get that break, because it made me realize that I don't need to be training that much to be in good shape. So, yeah, so I went back to CrossFit just 3 times a week, still a bit of jogging and yoga, and but then of course back to Bali, and I just love Muay Thai and I love Jiu-Jitsu. And like with both, I'm like, I need to be doing both at least 3 times a week if I want to make any progress. So I'm not as bad. Like I rarely train twice a day, unless maybe something like Muay Thai in the morning and some weights in the evening.
Yeah.
It's more, but it's still a lot, and I'm still aware that it's a lot of stress on the body. But again, I'm like, I've no other stresses in my life.
Yeah,
I'm like exactly. Eating a lot. I'm not, you know, so it's kind of like a sacrifice. But again, it's a value-based decision. It's like, this is more important to me than my health. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, but not, like I wouldn't even
showing up in any negative way, you know, like regular menstrual cycle, no stress, and everything else is pretty healthy. So I'm not worried.
I think that's the thing. Like, I wouldn't see it as an issue at all. And the reason being, first off, I do see it an issue with GA players who just don't know when to, like, they'll train a couple of times a week and then they're trying to get in runs and everything, but it's not adding anything to what they're doing. I think for yourself, exactly the way you were looking at it, like, you were still able to train at 100%. You weren't. I wouldn't say, from my perspective of what you were telling me, what you were training, I wouldn't say that you were overtraining by any means. It looked like you were managing it well, but I think that what other people and the mindset around it is, like, you can actually have these seasons of high stress in the body once you know it's going to be followed by a season of, like, all right, I can recover now and I'll rest.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt before I left Bali there, because I was, sorry to go across it. That's exactly what I felt like. I was kind of like pushing the training a bit, because I knew I come to Portugal now and all I've been doing is running. But again, and this isn't, as you say, like a season, you know, like, this is me going, yeah, putting on a bit of weight because I'm eating and drinking every night. Food choices aren't great here in terms of health. It's impossible to say no to a glass of green wine in the sun, and I'm just doing what I can, you know, like, so I'm like, yeah, I'll go and I'll focus on my jogging now, work on my fitness a bit. Just lifted some weights today for the first time in a month, and I'm going to be in bits tomorrow. But it's kind of like, it's acceptance, you know, it's not me going, oh my God, I'm putting on weight or I'm losing my training. But I know I'm going to settle in London for a bit. Then I'm like, then I'll get back to my jiu-jitsu and I'll be training consistently. And it's kind of acceptance as well. Like, a bit of me is like, I'm never going to get my blue belt with all this traveling. But again, it's like, well, that's the value, you know, like, exactly. It's acceptable. Like, if you're going to travel, it just means you're going to be slower than others at whatever. It's all about enjoying the journey.
That's exactly
like jiu-jitsu, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Is there? It is addictive when you're in it, though. My God. I don't want to hold you too much longer. I wanted to kind of cover just a couple of other questions, maybe outside of what we were talking about a small bit. And one thing actually relating to what you were talking about, you said you're reading into a lot of psychology now. I was going to say, what's something that you're looking into a small bit more that's interesting you most at the moment? What are you really looking at? I know you mentioned the value side of things at the start. Is there anything else?
I suppose philosophy at the moment is my latest
endeavor
niche that I'm reading. I don't know. Again, I kind of was having a bit of like, what is the meaning of life? And you know, again, when I was questioning values, and I'm like, am I doing it right? Like, am I doing life right? And really getting deep. And I don't know if you follow Ed from A Need to Read.
No, but I've heard him enough.
Sure, yeah, he's great. Yeah, a friend of mine actually was in Bali MMA and all that, but now he was always just reviewing books, and now he's getting into a lot of philosophy as well. And I find it really interesting how much, like, I'm learning more and more and more. Like, I'm fascinated about learning, but it's also kind of like, it's almost a little bit depressing when you're, you know, like, I used to be a lot more spiritual and be like, I used to think the universe is like laying out a path for me. And now I'm like, I can't believe I thought the galaxy had anything, like, cared what I was doing. So I'm reading a lot more philosophy about life, existentialism, and I'm only really dipping my toes in it. So I'm kind of excited to keep reading more and more. But I'm also very worried that I'm just going to have this like nihilism where I just think there's no meaning to life and what's the point? But then there's a positives to that as well, you know, realizing that, you know, we can fail at life and that's okay. You know, I can take risks. I can run out of money. I can spend all my money on stupid things and it's okay. I can change career. I can fail at Instagram and it'll be okay. You know, it's kind of looking at our insignificance as well is really important. So that's what I'm reading at the moment. But like, I'm really fascinated in loads of different things. Like I'm starting to look at politics now and just how I'm just really interested in how things work. And anything I don't understand, I'm like, I want to know that. And I love reading, so completely different points of views to what I have.
Yeah.
I love reading completely different viewpoints in books at the same time. And then making my own conclusion. Like I read a book again, I read anything, and I'm like, what if this is wrong? Or what if I'm wrong? And I've changed my mind about so many things in the past that I think it's exciting. Like I read every day, and I'm like, oh my god, imagine how much more knowledge I'm going to have in 10 years. Like, and what will I think then? And I think I'd love to study something else. I'm not really sure, but I feel like my goal with fitness is that I'm most passionate about helping women change their mindset. Like I want people to actually just be able to live their life and not have to think about, what calories are in anything. Like I'd love for my job to be extinct. Like I feel like there's so many women who are tied up in diet culture that they need our help. But I also, in the long run, I'm like, I think we will hopefully all move away from this in the long run, and we'll all just live our lives and not think about it. So, I almost am like, I still want to, I think I still want to study nutrition, but I'm like, I feel like I want to get into something else, but I just don't know what.
Really? Okay. So is there anything that would you go back and do like a master's in like philosophy, something like that? Or are you talking about more in outside of a college environment?
I think I do love, like, I hate to say I want to be a life coach, but like I'd love to do psychology. Just because I love helping people think, like I love when my friends are having like conflict with someone. I'm like, oh, let's sit down and talk about it. And I love like looking at different point of views and like considering, I think it's mad how I suppose influenced our thoughts are by everything. Like we think we know something, and then it's like, wait, hold on, that's based off so many biases and life experiences. And I'm really interested in that, but I've looked at doing another degree in psychology, and obviously it would mean staying in one place, and obviously a lot of time. And I was like, oh, that doesn't fit in with my value of freedom.
Yeah.
So that got like knocked in the head. But I don't know. I'm gonna try spend some time in one place in the next while, which I think will give me a lot more room for creativity. Like at the moment with Bali, I'm like training too much basically, and then eating and going out, and then so I think I need to kind of slow down a bit and give myself some more room to kind of create, and maybe create something new. I don't know. Like at the moment, business is going well, everything's going well. So like I feel like I'll get to a point where I'll be uncomfortable enough that I need to do something else. I have a couple of little things in the pipeline I won't mention yet because they might not happen. Just little like side gigs that I'm, and I love that freedom, like to try and fail. Like they might not work out, they might fail. Like I always feel like we can always make more money.
Yeah.
I always say, like I haven't got much debt or anything, so I'm like, if I fail, it's okay. Like I really, in the long run, I either want to own or work in a coffee shop that makes really good coffee and has good books and has people with laptops and just that kind of. So like either I'll own one or I'll work in one, and that's like when you live like that, it's like it doesn't matter if it all goes wrong.
Yeah. That's not. Yeah, it's a nice way of thinking, especially that you kind of have a future thing in mind. I'd love to have a small, because I grew up in a pub and a restaurant. I'd love to have something small like that as well. I'm older, just to be something nice to have running in the background. But I think the fact that you mentioned their values and how you were saying how going back and doing a course might actually go against your value of freedom, and then at the start you were saying how some of your values may affect your life decisions and may blind you to some things. Is there anything that you've become more aware of now looking into that?
Yeah, no, I haven't really kind of said this to anyone, but I'm actually going to move into London. And again, just to kind of settle a bit, like I have been really like moving around. I don't know if it's because I'm getting old either, but kind of just giving myself a bit more time with people with different values as well, and maybe working a little bit more and like having more routine. And like, so I can stay and do jiu-jitsu in one place. And so, but again, it kind of goes against my other values. Like I'm going to lock myself into a year lease, which is, again, for me, I'm like, commitment. But it's again, I'm like, I'll test it out. And like, again, I might come to the winter and starts raining and I'll be gone.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of open to testing out new things. Like, again, I've always been not against being in a relationship, but I was always like, absolutely not what I want. Do I want to consider someone else? I'm really happy. I like waking up every day. I'm very strict in my morning routine. If a guy is interested, I'm like, I can see at the weekend, but like, you can't mess up my weekdays. So I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'll stay in one place. Maybe I'll give a relationship a go. I don't know. I say that as if they're all knocking on the door. Like, it's just kind of like changing things a little bit just to try out new things. And again, I can be back in Bali in a couple of months and, back to what the life I loved. Like, there's a thing is, it's not that I feel like I have to change anything. It's a really good life. But again, I'm just questioning other ways of living.
Yeah, that's real philosophical, and like looking at the other side of it, as in what you know, but like you don't know what you don't know at the same time. It's really kind of leaning into what you don't know a small bit, and seeing if it is something that I don't know if it's your neglecting.
It's kind of difficult online, it's kind of difficult where I'm so like, this is it. And people, if I change my mind about things, like, hey, you said this, I'm like, yeah, but I'm also very aware of how much, I'm like, people can change. I still look at the stuff I used to post and I'm like, oh my God. But it's okay, I'm like, it's okay to change your mind.
Yeah, exactly. I heard it was actually, it might have been Joe Rogan, to be quoting of all people, but I think he was like, and he was saying something, and someone was like, yeah, but did you not say that before? And he was like, look, I'm not married to any of my opinions. He's like, anything I say now, it could change in time. He's like, I kind of have my set of values and what things that I live by, principles. He's like, but outside of that, like nothing is set in stone, basically, which I think more people should live by, because two people form opinions at a young age, and then that's their opinion for the rest of their life. And I think should be a bit more malleable than that. Okay. I'm conscious now that you have to get going, so I don't want to hold you for any longer.
I've plenty of time.
But the very last question. Say again.
I said, but you probably have to go to bed though.
I know it's not too
bad.
No,
it's afternoon now. Yeah.
But what I was going to say to you, the last one is, what purchase, and it was a Tim Ferriss thing I mentioned to you before, of under €100 or more has made the biggest impact on your life in the last year? And it doesn't have to be fitness related. It doesn't have to be anything like that. What would you say it is?
My AeroPress.
The coffee maker? The coffee maker?
Yeah.
Really?
Back in March 2020, I left, like, my routine was always around a good cup of coffee every morning. And I used to go to the Common every day and have my coffee and journal and all that. And then went back in pandemic into isolation. And I was like, what am I going to do for coffee? Like, I need a coffee every morning. And like, there's absolutely no way I'd consider instant. And then someone suggested an AeroPress. It's about €38. And that and a bag of decent coffee. And it's just every day. I probably had one every day besides when I'm hungover for the last 2 years. So like, I've gotten so much value out of it. And it just means that, like, wherever I travel, because I travel so much, like, I can't buy a decent coffee machine, but it just means that wherever I go, I know I'm going to see, I'm very strict on my morning routine.
Okay.
So I know that if I don't get up and have a good cup of coffee, it'll throw everything off. If I have to go out looking for a cup of coffee, like in Portugal, there's no decent coffee. I don't know, that's very, but I've yet to find a cup of coffee that I like. But I know that if I just have a bag of coffee and my AeroPress, I'm like, the rest of the day will go well.
Oh, really? Okay. Geez, that's very, I think it's a small one, but it can make a huge difference. What's the difference, the AeroPress? Like what?
It's like a French press. Like, it's portable. That's the big thing. Like, it's literally just it's like a plastic thing that pushes coffee through. It's like a French press, but kind of more durable. And I think, I don't know, whenever the air does something to it, it makes the coffee taste better. I'm not really sure. But I just know that it's something I've bought. I bought another one. Sometimes I leave them when I'm like stuck for space. I'm like, I'll buy another one because I'm like, it's still the most valuable thing I've ever bought. But I'd be like, here, Sinead, give this one. I give one to my sister. And I'm like, you keep that now. You're welcome. And then I see them not being used. I'm like, yeah, no, it's one of my favorite. I love that question. I remember that's Tula Titans. Loves that book. Learned a lot from it.
Excellent one, yeah. And no, that's, to be honest, Siobhan, I'm delighted, and thanks so much for jumping on. You covered absolutely everything there that and more than what I had even expected to do. And I know there was some people who were probably wondering, or when they're listening back to this, they'll be thinking that it will go down the side of nutrition-based stuff. And I think that you covered that perfectly, but I think you covered the overarching theme of it. So it's more about living the life that you want to live and kind of having the values that are surrounding that as well. Like, as you were saying, freedom, going out when you want, enjoying yourself and enjoying your day to day. So I really, really appreciate that. Is there anything?
Enjoyed that.
Is there anything that you want to leave with people? Where can people find you?
Well, yeah, my coaching program is the Ferriss, so it's just theferriss.ie, as in like a fire. Don't ask where they came from. It's been going for years. And yeah, my Instagram is Siobh Siobh.O'Hagan, O'Hagan.
Absolutely perfect. Okay, we'll let you go on there. Thanks a million for jumping on.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening again this week, guys. Really, really appreciate it. So definitely check out Siobhan's profile. And if anyone is interested or has any questions on anything that we chatted about, just get in contact with me at the Mobility Tutor on Instagram, or you can email me at mobilitytutor@gmail.com. Lastly, make sure to check out my most recent podcast with Dr. Colin Doody on resilience. And I have a lot more podcasts coming up in the next couple of weeks with guests, and we're going to go into a lot of detail on different topics such as nutrition. We're going to have strength and conditioning for GAA players. We're going to have performance nutritionists and psychologists. So make sure to check that out, and there'll definitely be some very good ones for you. Lastly, I would love if you could subscribe to this podcast on Spotify or iTunes, and make sure to rate it as well, as that really helps me get the name out there a small bit more, and also I know what ones you want to hear. So looking forward to the next one. Hope you are too, and I'll chat to you all again soon. Have a good one.